Welcome, fellow armchair generals. This is Gamer 1745 here with my continuing playthrough of Hearts of Iron 4 with Black Ice, and we're playing as France. Don't need to hover right over the air zone, but I do sort of like that they added that so you can see how far the different units can operate. Okay, well, let's continue this. We're still 10,000 behind on basic rifles. That's something I think I disagree with, because I think France had enough rifles. They are equipped here with a Mas 39, if I'm not mistaken. And not the Lebel rifle, which was the main World War I rifle. France was converting over from 8mm Lebel to 7.5mm. So those are sort of first-rate World War II bolt-action rifles, what these guys have. But they had millions of the Lebel rifles, World War I stuff. But it's probably good to start some training. Well, okay, good. Some training as well. Build up our army a little bit more. And concentrated industry. Pause this. Let's figure out what industrial improvements we want to continue here. Researching. Yeah. And for national focuses. Okay, so we've got proposal, research, recruitment population, national base unity, general mobilization, more than 50% world now. So we don't want to do those. Okay, so I think we're sort of done with that for the moment. Now, Little Entente, which would mutually exclusive. Czechoslovakia, okay. Fight Yugoslavia and fight Romania. So Bloom, socialist. Towards liberalism, naive peaser. No, I know I just removed the guy from promoting socialism. Maybe we want to go down the Bloom path. But we can't go with Britain then. I do believe, not sure. I don't think we're going to be ready. See, it's one thing to fight Germany in 36 when Germany is in completely unprepared for war, but by 38 or so, I don't think we're going to be as ready. So we're probably going to go down this path, I think. I think that's best. Benelux military accord, yeah. Let's go down that. Okay, so now we are no longer having... Well, thanks for following the channel. Do appreciate that. Tool maintenance, okay, good. And which then allows us to do that. But now we are also here. We are going to move much, much faster here. Okay. We now have a trained army command. Marco Polo bridge incident, so things are going to heat up in China. I know I've said this before, but the Marco Polo bridge incident and Hindenburg disaster was sort of a last straw and maybe a little bit more provocative than some. But there had been a lot of ongoing raids along this region, and not necessarily so much right at Beijing, the sort of traditional old northern Manchu capital of China. But in these parts, this border was a lot more fluid than this line might make you think. And a lot of the provocations were done by puppet troops of either Beijing, but also a Manchukuo Paris exhibition. Well, since we're Paris, we're going to do this. This deserves a much, much bigger event than this for France. Obviously, France is low priority, but if you've watched or played Third Reich events, you know pretty well what Germany did for it. Right, I think that one building there, where the German exhibition is, right across it is the Soviet exhibition, but it's right sort of in there. This was a major, sort of a super World's Fair that you find in the U.S. And it was a one-off thing that was cultural, but also very sort of industrial and technological, you know. Don't know if I want to try to do one of my... You young folks don't understand how things used to be, but the world's changed a lot. One of my grandfathers lived to what I think it was 95, fairly healthy up until like the very end. And so if he wasn't quite born before the Wright brothers first flew, I think he was. And so, I mean, because he only died recently, but I mean, it's been 10 years now, I guess, but still sort of recent. But so he saw basically the coming of flight, World War One, as I think a young child or whatever. And I mentioned this in an earlier episode. World War II, he was not necessarily too old to go into the war, but sort of old enough that he wasn't in the draft, and he had 2 children at the time of the starting of the war, had a third later, and had a somewhat protected job of being owning a small butcher shop in America. So, you know, a necessary, not a high vital job, but you know, being a family man, being older out of the main draft age, you know, I think he was in his 30s, if I'm not mistaken, when the U.S. started the war, or was was attacking, got in the war. So just, you know, I think 35 was sort of the rough cut out for possible draft or volunteers. So he could have, I think, volunteered, but he wasn't interested, you know, with a family to take care of, because you got to realize he would have had to shut down his business, and there was no governmental support for wives and family. He'd get a private's pay. You know, private's pay, in my opinion, in World War II, and I'm not a great expert on all nations and all pay, but it's just fine for providing for a single private. He's being paid well enough. And I sort of kind of think a private's pay is enough in the modern military. Now, sometimes you go and look at it, well, hey, yeah, this private, but he has a wife and 3 kids. And I'm thinking, what the hell is he doing being a private in the army? You know, with that. Not that he can't or shouldn't be, but, you know, how do you support a family on that? You know, that's sort of a sergeant and long-term, better pay kind of thing, but still. So, yeah, the Army for a private is a young man, 18 to 24, don't have any encumbrances. kind of thing. And if you're going to stay beyond that, well, then think about being more than a private. So, so with that kind of stuff, he saw the world change so much. Saw jet flight happen. Saw the internet happen, including, the World Wide Web was going strong before he died. And he was never really like on the internet, but his second wife very much, had a computer and was typing out, documents on the computer and stuff. So he saw the computer and he saw the coming of television and he saw this big, massive change in the world. And so the world that I grew up in was about the same as my parents' world, which both my parents, one was born just before World War II, and the other one was born, my mother was born just after World War II ended, so she was born in 45, I think within a month or so of, or two or whatever, at the end of the war. No, later than that, but still in 45. So, they had telephones then, and yeah, the television was coming, and and things like that, but they already had radio, and they already had airplanes flying around, and all that kind of stuff. And so, that was sort of to some degree my world when I grew up. There was theoretically the internet. My dad was on it because he worked for the government, but there was no World Wide Web, no www protocol, no HTML web pages at all. So, So now with the information age, we're seeing a new great changing of technology coming. So I'm seeing that as a full adult. A lot of you who are watching, because I see the demographics, are younger, that you have been born after or were 5 years old when www came out. So most of your life experience has been in this information age. Where before that, I had to go to the library or literally buy books to learn about World War II. And I was actually sort of got a fairly early adopter with a VCR that my parents bought. But that was an expensive thing. And so if you weren't home when the documentary about World War II was on, you missed it. You didn't get to record it, and things like that. And so it was much harder to learn about World War II and any other topic you care to name before the information age. Now with this information age, things are so much easier to learn about. Information is out there. Anyone can get any education that they want. You can go become a nuclear scientist without ever going to school. As long as you have internet connections, you can be, if you have internet connections and you're in the heart of Africa, and yeah, you got to feed yourself, so you may have to work a lot, but you can study and research. Now, you may be becoming a nuclear scientist at the age of 60, and well, why do it? Well, just because you want to be, you want to learn how to be a nuclear scientist. You can do it. You don't have to. So long as you have an internet connection, you don't have to go to some university to get that education, to get access to those books. You can do it anywhere in the world that you have the proper internet connection and the ability. And yes, I know there's poverty in Africa that doesn't have internet connection. There's poverty, people are just too poor in India to have it. Yes, I know that. I understand. But it's still possible, where it wasn't possible in the 1970s to do it. And it wasn't, so it's changed. But a technological and industrial revolution is going on. Before the 1930s, and this is partially spurred by World War I, the world was not too much of an industrial place. Britain had industrialized largely, Germany had industrialized, France was industrializing, but places like Italy, Austro-Hungarian Empire, and yeah, somebody can point out to me some factories in Austria-Hungary, and I'm absolutely sure know that they existed. But like farming was primarily done with muscle power. And I say that because I mean human and animals. It wasn't industrialized, meaning farm machinery that were powered by gas or electric motors. It was, non-industrial world. People didn't own a tractor or a truck. People. Now, big landowners that, even if they might not have been what a modern corporation would determine it, but you know what I mean, and they were maybe, had titles and other things, they had tractors and things, and people saw tractors and things, but people didn't own tractors and things. So this industrialization thing, and it was right around this period in 36 that you have Goebbels pushing out the idea of a cheap radio, and he wanted to get it into everybody's home. And so in 1933, when Hitler comes to power using the radio heavily, I still believe most Germans, and I don't have the exact stats in front of me, so I believe as opposed to know, but most Germans did not even have a radio in the home of any sort. That doesn't mean they didn't listen to the radio. It doesn't mean they didn't gather in locations that had radios, and it doesn't mean that 30 or 40% of the population didn't have radio, or did have radios. That they're very well, a fair number did, but not everyone. Where Goebbels wanted every single home to have a cheap radio that was set to get in certain frequencies that the Nazis broadcast on, and preferably not have the tuning dial that you could easily tune in any other things, just sort of a click dial, so it would go to preset or have tuning crystals or whatever. I don't know the details entirely technologically, but tune set up to listen to his stations, nobody else's. The main thing that he put out, of course, was entertainment with a little bit of propaganda. That's how Goebbels worked. He was an entertainment guy with a little bit of propaganda. And that's an important thing to note. It wasn't like propaganda like you might see out of the Soviet Union. It was entertainment. It was fun stuff. It was sort of the approved entertainment of the Nazis. Looks sort of kitsch to us today if you watch and listen to some of it. I'm watch some of their television stuff. It's really sort of corny, but supposedly it was popular and also the approved type. So that was what was going on. So this is what is going on all over the world, but even still very much in Western Europe. So this was a chance to see the new technological wonders, and not just that they existed, but that you were going to be able to have them. The idea of a refrigerator, of an electric mixer, something other than a fire-based oven. Maybe gas, but also just electrified world. And so, as opposed to, I'd be shocked in 1937 if, let's say before 1930, if most Parisians didn't have a fire, whether it was coal or wood based oven in their homes as their primary cooking oven. So this is a radical change that is coming about. And so this is sort of that's why industry and technology are such a center part of this international exposition. It wasn't meant to just be a look at all the new technologies, but that was a big change in the world, is this use of power, whether it's electrical or gas or other sorts, gases in natural gas or gases in gasoline, but radical change. And I don't think people understand how big of a change this is to the world, and this is a big change. So huge global success, yes. I know I spent a lot of time on it, but I think it's important to understand how the world was changing. And like we are, our Google overlords, and I know the internet is still blowing up over net neutrality. Now, net neutrality, I don't know if you know this, that's gone away. Let me just pop. Net neutrality that's gone away hasn't gone anywhere. Do you know that? Do you know that net neutrality has not gone anywhere, people? It is just no longer a Title II thing. And I don't know all the details of the exact titles and that stuff. That it is now, currently the regulations were such that you had to comply with them. Now it is moved so that if you're found to be abusing things, you can be sued by the government to not do things. So it's sort of ex post facto, meaning if you do something that is bad, whatever it may be, under the things, and again, I don't know the law, and I'm sure you don't know what net neutrality said. I'm sure you don't know it. You just know that net neutrality, net neutral, everybody equal and fair. That's all you know about it, and you want that. You don't know the details. You don't know why it was done. You don't know the details. I don't know the details in detail either, but what I do know is that it was primarily written, at least the information that I get, primarily written by Google lobbyists, our Google overlords. Hi there, you own YouTube. I know you listen to the audio. Your bots listen to the audio, so I know this episode will be demonetized, so I already know that. But our Google overlords wrote net neutrality because it helps their business. Doesn't help you, the customer. It helps their business, and their business models, like YouTube, are benefited by the inability of a ISP or whatever to throttle things. I get that. But it's really just one big massive company fighting other big massive companies, okay? Fighting Comcast or Verizon or whatever it may be. So net neutrality hasn't really gone away. It's just no longer a Title II. And really it's now, instead of being an FCC, a Federal Communications Commission thing, it's really now moved out of that, or it's still sort of in that, if my understanding is correct, but it now is really more an FTC thing, a Federal Trade Commission issue. So that the Federal Trade Commission, like unfair trade practices, or, what's this other important thing? Antitrust laws. Meaning, antitrust laws are laws that say that you can't have a monopoly. You can't be Google and buy up everything. If you do that, the government will come in and break up your company. And so if you get big enough, you have to get approved to buy any major big thing, big mergers. And this is not just in the information world. This is like in the automobile world. So you can't go from the big 3 U.S. automakers to the big 1. They keep that from happening. So one of the companies may go out of business, but can't be bought by another one of the big companies. This is antitrust laws. Well, my jihad personal is local monopolies, meaning this local city of Orleans, something I know how to pronounce, currently in the U.S. often has one cable company, one phone company, and that's it. One cable and one phone. So DSL or cable modem, that's your only 2 choices, only 2 companies. Now, why can't there be a second cable company? They just run the cables all in the same cable pole, the same telephone type poles. My phone company and my cable company use the same telephone pole, and if you add 2 more sets of type of cables, what's that going to affect me? It's not going to clutter up the sky any, really. In some areas, in the city next to me here, at least parts of it, they've run all of the cables underground. So they have it set up to run underground so they can just run more cables underground, because they have pipes that they just do, I don't know the details, but run, they don't have to dig new trenches. They just run cables through the pipes. So there's no telephone poles. There can't maybe fit 100 cables in that pipe. I don't know how many they could fit in that pipe. And you can't have maybe 100 cables practically running on all the telephone poles, but you can have more than 1 or 2. So this is the local, and these are local company, local law monopolies. Each cities have these things. I want these local monopolies broken up so that more people can provide options for cable operations or for telecommunications or ISPs and all of this stuff. So break up those monopolies. And now the reason Comcast is a big, massive company, but if it starts to own too much of the United States cable market, there's federal antitrust laws. I want antitrust laws that are local as well as federal, so that they can't do sweetheart deals and monopolies. But we're looking at that. So net neutrality hasn't really gone totally bye-bye. It's changed. It's no longer that set of regulations, but it's now more of an FTC than an FEC. So you can still all hear me and get me on the internet. But our Google overlords, through the technology, are really controlling our lives a lot. And they like net neutrality because they don't want to have to deal with local, or they don't want to have to, because at one point recently, within the last few years, last 3 or 4 years, Netflix, the one site, Netflix, was 50% of the bandwidth in the US. So 50%. So if you have a cable company, now my cable company sucks, so I didn't get cable. I have satellite dish and I have Fios now. But it didn't get I can get cable. So cable sucks, but the reason it sucks is because it's really fast, but then they put many homes on it. And so then if all the homes want to use it all at once, it slows it way down. Well, so if you're all running Netflix at once, it slows it way down. Well, if the cable company wants to, onto one sort of router, if you will, and it's maybe what they're called. If you want to have fewer homes per router, open up the bandwidth, it's going to cost the cable company money. Okay? You understand that, people? To have more bandwidth to each home, it's going to cost the cable company more money to put it in. Once it sort of puts in, it doesn't really cost them more, but it's going to cost them more to expand it. But if they don't have any competition, if there's only one choice, then they go, who cares? We're going to make our $50 a month or whatever it is. We don't care about you, cable companies. And they don't. When there's no competition, they don't care about you. And that's the situation. So they've got this sort of monopoly for the cable. Now, they then tell, and because now everybody's complaining about cable, and there's other options through a phone company option. And so they're going, 50% of our bandwidth is Netflix. Well, Netflix, if you pay us some money, and these are big companies, so it's millions of dollars, we won't throttle your bandwidth, and we'll use that money to put more routers so that there's fewer homes per router. That's, I guess, a simple way of saying it. So that each home will have faster speeds at the same time. Because, you see, it's one thing if they go and say, everybody has a 100 megabit pipe opened up. Okay, each home, 100 megabits pipe. But if there's 20 homes on one router, if they all use things at max things, they're only going to get 1/20th of whatever that router is capable of doing. It's not one home, one router. That's the way cable is set up infrastructurally. So they've got to add more infrastructure. And so it's sort of a one-time fee to get this stuff up. And so that's the situation. And so without the ability of companies to get more money to expand, they're not going to expand. The government, what, are we going to pay for the expansion of the cable companies, greedy cable companies who give us bad service? Things are going to be hell if you don't break up these monopolies. Now, I'm hoping they don't become hell, and I'm hoping that by doing this stuff that we can get local companies away from being monopolies so that new options grow. But if they don't do that, then I'm hoping the voters get upset and not demand some sort of net neutrality, but demand locally, vote out their damn city council people, and then to vote in new city council people who will say, I will break the contract with XYZ cable company or XYZ phone company and allow any company to come in, so long as they build for a code, the code of wiring, so it's safe, build to code. Anybody can come in and compete. So other companies can come in and compete. And so it won't happen overnight because we just can't do that. But trust me, there are other major cable companies out there. And if they could come into particularly big markets like LA, like New York, they would do so salivatingly. Trust me. The one area that is sort of, and I don't know a lot about it, is sort of the rural people. But then, who the hell do rural people count? They don't. Well, there's very few of them, and they're all conservatives anyway, so they don't really count. Yeah, you get my sarcasm there, I'm sure. Grand battle plan, good. We've got that, which was sort of the big French thing. There we go. Oh, and we also have a benefit, so we'll get this done fast. Support Daladier. Okay. Oh. Leon Blum resigns. With the inflation also rose 46%. The imposition of the 40-hour work week provided highly inefficient, as industry had a difficult time adjusting to it. Economic confusion hindered the rearmament effort, and the rapid growth of German economic forced Blum to abandon the social reforms programs of the Popular Front. Excuse me here. Popular Front had counted heavily on. Leon Blum resigns, the parliament refusing to give him the means to solve the economic crisis. Okay, so, yes, socialism, 40-hour work week instead of a 48-hour work week. I think France now is on a, 32-hour? Or is it just a 2-hour work week? I don't know. Doesn't work. Or at least at minimum it doesn't work well. Oh, we can still go down the Little Entente, but it's exclusive with this. Okay, well, that's cool. French intervention. We can go here, or we can go here. We can go do both of these. Okay, so French intervention. We might want to do that. But let's look over here. Can't do that yet. Naval construction program. Well, expand our air bases. Develop Morocco. Develop Tunisia. Indochina, which will just get taken over by Japan, so we don't want to do that. Well, by that time we're done. Develop Algeria. That would be nice for military factories. So if we develop Morocco, 140 days. 140 days to get to another research slot. Economic reforms. Yeah, this is where we should go here. Can't do that, but we can do this. So I think this will push us down a path for good stuff. Okay, improved machine tools, good. First, let's come over here. Here, yeah, okay, we've got that. So nothing in 38. We've got that. Researching. Let's build truck factories. Let's get Peugeot working, or some other French, Citroën or whatever. Until 39, I think we're pretty good here. 38, we'll wait for that. Okay, well. That would be really nice. Let's go with that. So yeah, you can tell I'm a bit worked up about all this net neutrality stuff. And you know what? And compared to, you know, I'll readily admit I may be entirely wrong about what companies are going to do and how bad it's going to get and all kinds of stuff like that. But all this mass hype and panic and push by Google and other elements, I could say industrial elements, but they're sort of techno elements, is way overdone in my opinion. Way overdone. Okay.
Bougez-vous.
Amelia Earhart disappears. No longer effect from Maginot Agreement. Oh, okay, which I think no, doesn't change that. I was hoping we get more. Move up to Sedan and make sure we're gonna not hold it with the motorized forces, I don't think. Tour de France, yes. Japan declared war on China, Japan to Libya, yes. Yeah, one more. Leadership purges in the Soviet Union. Basically, none of those people were traitors. They were just all Stalin trying to keep power. We want to make sure that there's no other option but him. How are we doing for training our 2 divisions? Fall of Beijing. Okay. Decent enough. How are we doing for... Well, we're building more than we need. We need more heavy artillery. A lot more stuff. We have Fall of Beijing. Good. Well, don't know if it's good, but yeah. Alright. Artillery workshops. Good. Once we get enough basic military factories, we'll build a few more of these. No, we don't. Oh, what are no, artillery. Tank workshop. No, yeah. Oh, okay. We'll go with that. It wasn't what I planned, but I do want that to help in our tanks. World tension. Now, of course, as the Allies, world tension generally helps us. Okay, economic reforms were good. Now, Agricultural National Office, resources to market, we'll get more of. Less will go to the market, more will be for our use. Max state factories increase, rank devaluation, get rid of the modified by inflation. On 49 days, 70 days. Tunisia, let's rearmament. World tension 20%. Okay, which, like I say, world tension helps us. Okay, fighter baiting. I probably picked the wrong path. Okay, Yugoslavia requests sale of airplanes. Okay, since I don't think we're building any of those, are we building any of those? No, we're not really building any of those. So yeah, we'll divert fighter production, non-existent fighter production. Let's see here. We want to. You know, you don't have enough equipment. Deploy that.
Gardez vos rangs. Bougez-vous.
What are we missing here? Our mountain artillery. They basically, oh, recon infantry equipment is what we're also missing. Okay, so we're not even producing that yet. Now, how are we doing for mortars? Mortar teams. Okay, we have an excess of mortar teams. Apparently, cavalry equipment. Okay, so what we're going to do here is cavalry equipment, and we still need that. So what we're going to do here is make a rational choice to stop this cavalry equipment from being produced. Oh well, let's first make sure. Okay, recon is the next thing up, so we can stop the cavalry equipment. Yes. But just because we may need it later, I want to let's put it way down here if we get enough factories. But we can see about that. You know, the MOS 36. Yeah. Rifle. So that will put us into production of reconnaissance equipment. Good. And let's, yeah, we're going to hurt ourselves a little bit. Cancel that. And then we're going to restart that up. Mortar team. Move that up by one so that happens first. Okay, well now we have the MS-405 fighter actually in production. And we are now also doing recon equipment. So we can hold this line better. Now that we have this spot held, we're going to come here because we can be attacked in multiple places here. Well, that's just holding out there. Compelled to move all your troops to the Germany border and maybe the Dutch border because that's where we're most likely to be attacked from. Because they come through the Dutch. Not that the Dutch are going to attack. Oh, good. That's now reduced that down. construction 2. Good. That will mean things are constructed faster. I don't know what 37. Well, give those fighters. Heavy bombers. You know I like naval bombers, but I don't know how much we need that. Yeah, let's do this. Stop the Germans' tactics. Truck workshops, good. Well, skills and training, good. Yeah, I would. Well, yeah, we'll do that. Well, we're going to end the episode here. I want to thank everyone for watching. I want to thank you for liking the videos if you would. And of course, just if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel for more great too long talks by me. Well, I don't know if they're great, but more too long talks by me. And hopefully great videos. But please subscribe. And of course, please post questions, comments, suggestions, ideas, corrections. Love hearing from you. See you next time for more Hearts of Iron.